Welcome back to Crypto Code by ICN today. In today's video, I want to go through the thought process of setting up my portfolio for the upcoming bull run. The crypto market's been very choppy this year, and we've seen a lot of altcoins lose their profits while Bitcoin was really dominant. I actually talk about how it's Bitcoin season in another video. We'll put the link below. Make sure you check it out. In that video, we were still unsure about how much the Fed was going to cut the rates, but they cut the rates by 50 basis points, which is why we're seeing green across the market and Bitcoin at 63K. This is very bullish because it's assumed that the Feds are going to cut the rates again by another 50 basis points. So with that, I am so confident that the bull run is going to come in 2025, and I think it's time to look at the portfolio and shift things around. A lot of great projects have been building over the past 3 years, and 12 of them have really stood out for me, and this is why I've decided to put them in the portfolio for the next upcoming cycle. None of this is financial advice. This is purely for entertainment. Please always do your own research. So this is my third cycle, and what I usually do when I think we're at the end of a cycle and we're coming to a bull run is recalibrate the portfolio to make sure I have the right projects in for what's trending right now as well. Before we get started, I want to share some personal strategies that I've learned through my experience of investing in crypto. Number one, I am not a day trader. I failed at that miserably. Number two, I only invest what I can afford to lose. And number three, I used to be a more degen, high-risk investor. I've taken a more conservative approach now with more regulations coming and looking at what institutions are doing as well. Now, with all that being said, I like to split my portfolio into two main categories. Number one is the OGs, Bitcoin and Ethereum. And number two are all the other altcoins, which I also like to further break down into four subcategories. The first one is layer ones, addressing certain use cases. The second is DeFi. The third is gaming. And the fourth, I look at new trends such as AI and RWAs. So as I plan to structure my portfolio, I like to get insight from some of the biggest players in the industry. One such person is Yatsu. He's the chairman of Animoca Brands. Animoca Brands is one of the largest Web3 players in the industry. They've made over 540 investments in the space, including big names like The Sandbox, YGG, MetaMask, Ledger, to name a few. ICN founder Danny has interviewed Yatsu a couple of times. We'll leave the link below. Go check him out after this video. Yat recently contributed to a Cointelegraph article where he shares his insights on what's happening in the crypto industry. I think it's worth sharing because he points out the difference between what's happening with the OGs such as Bitcoin and Ethereum, as well as his take on what's happening in the altcoin space, which is basically every other coin outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum. The market cap of all fungible tokens as of today stands at around $2 trillion. From that total, altcoins have gained around $240 billion in the past year. Animoca Labs research actually points this out in a chart. So as you can see, Bitcoin market cap last year was $506 billion. This year it sits at $1.1 trillion. That's an increase of 117%. Ethereum, on the other hand, was at $197 billion last year, and it sits today at $292 billion. That's a 48% increase. All other altcoins were sitting at $342 billion last year, but this year it's at $583 billion. That's a 70% increase. What's also fascinating is that Yat points out that there's been a 107% increase in the number of tokens that are issued across exchanges, which is insane. It used to be at 1.69 million tokens available last year, but it's sitting today at 3.5 million tokens that have been issued by so many projects. But in contrast, the number of crypto users has not increased by that much. It's only increased by 33%. So global crypto ownership has gone up from like 400 million people to around 560 million. So the issue that he points out with this is when you have so many projects launching different tokens, the attention span of the retail investor is lost because they have so many options to look at. Every project is doing a huge marketing sprint. And so when you have that much attention that's being diluted, you also have liquidity issues as well. But one very key interesting point that I took away from this article was how institutions are now getting involved, and I've decided to use that as part of my strategy. But one very interesting takeaway from the article as well is that institutional investors that are coming into projects usually outperform the competition. I actually agree with this, and it's become the foundation of my portfolio strategy. I myself personally work with so many accelerators in the Web3 space, and I'm seeing a lot of interest from venture capital and investors who are really keen to come into this space, but they're being very picky with the projects that they're investing in. And a quote from the article goes, "Well-performing tokens in 2024 tend to have significant institutional interest from liquid funds. Liquid institutional investors invest via the open market as opposed to investing at the startup stage the way that VC firms do, and as such have a notable impact on the performance of those specific altcoins." 7 great examples of these are TON, Solana, XRP, BNB, AVAX, SUI, and Mocha. Institutional support can help altcoins significantly because the marketing behind it also has a very big impact. Fundamentally, institutions are more diligent with the way they invest. They're more selective, and they also have a longer term horizon than the traditional retail investor. So the likelihood of success for a project that has institutional backing is definitely much higher than projects who don't. Another great point that's highlighted in the article is that institutional investors have not really gone into crypto yet as much as they do in traditional finance. A good angle to look at, and it's very promising to see, is that there's so much more room for investors, institutional investors, to get into the crypto industry. So right now, if we were to look at the S&P 500, for example, 80% of investors in that space are institutional investors. This contrasts strongly with what's happening in the crypto industry. Most of the institutional investors are just putting their money in Bitcoin, specifically in Bitcoin ETFs. As of June 2024, 77% of institutional investors have only put 5% of their investment into the crypto industry. Another thing worth pointing out is Bitcoin's market cap is now at $1.1 trillion, whereas Bitcoin ETFs are only at 88 billion. And you see, guys, it's always a good strategy to kind of follow where the big money is going, right? So when we see these institutional investors coming in and really doing their due diligence, studying the projects and backing them, it makes sense for us to also look at what's happening in that space, because they have the marketing budget, they have the teams, and they have the expertise to kind of make sure that they're betting on the right projects, so to say. So I think this is a great strategy to focus on what the institutional investors are doing, and I've decided to use that for my personal portfolio construction for the upcoming bull run. Okay, so let's get started and take a look at my personal portfolio. Again, this is my personal opinion. I could be wrong. This could all crash to zero one day, but it's my personal opinion. I wanted to share my thoughts about how I constructed this portfolio. So let's pull up my portfolio plan now. Okay, so here we have it. This is my portfolio construction, and this is what I feel confident about personally. Again, this is my personal opinion. Obviously, we have the OGs at the top. I have Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, XRP. I also have Toncoin because I'm really bullish on it, Tron, Avalanche, Chainlink, Sui, XDC Network, Boba Network, and Mocha Network. How I like to look at the portfolio is maybe unconventional to what most people will do, especially when I'm at the end of the cycle, preparing for the next 6 to 12 months. When I strongly believe the next bull market is coming, this is kind of how I like to look at things, especially when we've seen really profits just get wiped in the market. So the way I like to look at it is from all-time high. So I'll usually put that in my chart. And you can see a great example here is Bitcoin is only 14% below its all-time high, which is $10,000 below what it's ever, the highest it's ever been. If you look at Ethereum, that's at minus 48%, which shows there's a huge potential for upside with Ethereum. Solana is minus 42%. XRP is minus 85%. That's insane. For me, when I look at something like that, and I feel like it could potentially, would it ever hit the all-time high again? Probably not. I don't think it will hit $3.25 anytime soon. But if it does even go up by half of that, you're looking at a great returns of 2-3x. So these are the kind of things that I like to look at. Toncoin is down minus 30%, which shows strong conviction that it could potentially hit the all-time high again, which would basically be at another $2.50. Is down minus 50% from its all-time high. Avalanche is down 81% from its all-time high. But then again, Avalanche's all-time high was $117. Will it ever get to that point again? I doubt it, just because if you look at the supply, half of it is still, not out there. So I don't have a strong conviction that Avalanche will hit $117 anytime soon. But again, minus 81% is something to look at. If it even goes up by half of that or even a third of that, you're looking at some returns, which could take potentially Avalanche to $50 next year. Chainlink is down 78% for such a project that is literally the oracle for all projects and blockchains happening and what they're doing with RWAs. I really believe this is an undervalued asset. Again, in my personal opinion, I do think this could potentially bounce back up to $25 in the bull run, and that's why I've decided to put in my portfolio. Sui is a great project. I've met the team. I've met the founding team. I know kind of what they're looking to build in the next year or so. So I'm really bullish on Sui. If we look at also year to date, which is another thing I like to look at, Sui is up 92% this year alone, and it's down 31% from its all-time high. So I'm really, bullish on Sui. XDC Network, I started to learn more about. Also met the team there, and what they're doing in the RWA space is really appealing. And I know that they're investing a lot in the in promising startups. So I'm really convinced on what they're building for the next year. They're down minus 85% from the all-time high. Also down 51% this year, which could be a potential strong upside if things move in the right direction. I'll also go in later about how I'm going to split them into percentages, which you'll see how my risk appetite is not so high these days as it was before, and I'll show that to you right after this. Boba Network, I also know the team quite well. I have a strong conviction. They have a minus 97% from their all-time high of $7.77. Will it ever hit that? Probably not. We'll see how things progress. Also, their circulating supply is not fully out there. They are down around 25% this year. I do believe that they'll be doing really well next year because of some of the programs that they're running. And then finally, Mocha Network, just because I am bullish on Animoca brands, I've been part of their programs, and I feel like they really know how to build a community, and I have a strong conviction. It's down to only 23% from its all-time high. I think it will do quite well in the bull run. So this is my conviction. This is what I look at. Again, if we go back to the year to date, Bitcoin is up 50% this year, which is fantastic. And as again, we discussed how it is Bitcoin season, and this just proves that. Ethereum is up 11%, Solana 48%. Toncoin, the clear winner in all of this, 148% this year. Fantastic returns. Tron again, 41%. So I look at the reds and I look at the greens, and then according to how they've been performing this year and how they've performed when in relation to their all-time high, I'll then look at how to split this into percentages. I also want to dive a little bit deeper on each altcoin. I think Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana and XRP are quite well known. I want to just touch on some of the other projects as well. I have strong conviction for other reasons beyond their price action. If we look at XRP, they've obviously resolved their legal challenges, which is great. They have huge institutional backing and, again, a large potential for upside. I'll move on to Toncoin. The Telegram integration is a no-brainer, very strong ecosystem, a huge growing developer interest, strategic partnerships, and again, institutions are very interested in Telegram as well as what's going on Toncoin, so I really believe that's a strong conviction for me. Tron and TRX, looking at the news, they've signed some great partnerships and acquisitions. They acquired BitTorrent, which is a popular file sharing service with over 100 million users. Samsung has also integrated Tron into its Samsung blockchain key store, and making Tron dApps and tokens available to users of their Galaxy smartphones. So that's very bullish for me. Moving on to Avalanche, highly scalable, high scalability and speed. Very strong institutional backing. Again, going back to what I was saying, and VC as well. So a lot of venture capital investments have gone into Avalanche. They've raised a lot of money, and I think they're not going anywhere, especially working with JP Morgan and the likes. Their DeFi is stronger than ever. The total value locked is very high. It's a thriving ecosystem with Aave and Curve Finance and Trader Joe. So very, very strong conviction for me on Avalanche. Moving on to Chainlink, I mentioned a little bit how they are, the number one player in the Oracle space, and then wide adoption across multiple blockchain networks. And then finally, huge partnerships and collaborations, especially now with what's happening in RWA, which is, a trending topic that a lot of investors are looking at. Moving on, Sui. I've met the team at Miston Labs. Incredible backgrounds, all worked at Meta. They use the Move programming language, which is appreciated by developers. And they just announced a new handheld device. Looks like a Nintendo Switch, which I'm really excited to see. I think you can pre-order it now at $599 or something, but you can check it out on their website. And they've also attracted significant venture capital backing, raising hundreds of millions of dollars to really push the ecosystem. Moving on, I'll go on to XDC Network. Their focus on RWA and trade finance makes it very appealing to me because I think in the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see a lot of real-world assets being tokenized on-chain. And then finally, Mocha Network. Animoca Brands is behind this. Very bullish on Animoca Brands and their ecosystem. They've been around for a long time. They've invested in some of the biggest projects. And it's my lowest cap in the portfolio. They're currently valued at $125 million. Huge potential to grow. And so that's why I've decided to add them in here. So now I'm going to pull out the portfolio and I'm going to show you how much percentage I want to put in each of the coins. So if we look at Bitcoin, I've decided to go 25%. Ethereum 20%, Solana 10%, XRP 6%, Toncoin 10%, and then you'll see 8% down to 2% on Mocha and Boba. I think this is quite conservative. Obviously, if I wanted to have a higher risk appetite, I would go lower on the Bitcoin and Ethereum and higher on the Mocha network because it is a small cap. Over the years, this is my third cycle. I've decided to take a more conservative approach. And so this is kind of the percentages that I looked at and how I plan to allocate my investment portfolio for the next 6 to 12 months. So I think for this series, it'd be great to come back and look at how this portfolio is performing, and we'll make sure to kind of show you which projects have gone up, which ones have gone down, and then it'll be fun to come back and just see how things are progressing. Again, I'm not a day trader. Tried that, failed miserably. This is going to be my conviction for the next 6 to 12 months. I'm going to stick with it, and then we'll kind of follow it over the next weeks or so, every month, and kind of come back and see which ones are doing well and which ones aren't. However, if I do see a project that comes out and there's a lot of marketing behind it and huge news or announcements around it, I might consider adding that in. On the other side, if I do see a project fail miserably and a scandal with the founder, I'll definitely take it out. But for now, I'm quite convinced that this is a good portfolio for the next, for the upcoming cycle and the bull run. I want to see you guys come back to this series, so please like and subscribe, and let's see how this portfolio actually does perform. Check out ICN.live, our flagship ecosystem product where you can get the latest news in Web3, blockchain, AI, tech, gaming, robotics, and travel. All the latest news and announcements all in one place. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any suggestions or topics, please let me know in the comments. Would love to hear your feedback as well. And hopefully we can improve this and make it better for you over time. If you have any topics you want me to talk about, please let me know in the comments. I do check the comments. I'll be more than happy to look at it, and it'll make the channel better. So thank you so much for your support. See you again on the next one.